Hey guys, Eric and Roth here to talk about the 4th episode of Walking Dead Season 5, Slabtown. Full spoilers follow, so you still with us? Okay. Beth, we finally caught up with her, and a whole new arena, a whole new playground here on The Walking Dead.
It's funny because a little bit it felt like what they had done last season, where they went into these individual episodes that were unrelated to the story as established in the first couple of episodes. But you know what I liked about it? Do you remember BSG's Razor? Do you remember when they did the Razor episode when they went onto the other ship and they were like, what if this person was in charge?
Right.
I thought it was kind of cool to see a very different interpretation. We've seen this a couple of different times, obviously, with the governor and certainly at Terminus, of how to deal with this world. But this was really fresh. This felt like a really new take on how a group of people would manage these circumstances.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it definitely was interesting just visually because it's been so long, really season 1, since we've had a city setting, and to be back in Atlanta, and it did feel very different because for so long now, even when they were at the prison, it was still like the prison was in the middle of nowhere. Yeah. And it felt like everything felt so like rustic and out there. So yeah, it really helped sort of shake things up to be back in this much more controlled environment than we've seen.
Where they're still really, and this was the other thing that felt very different to me, where they're still very much trying to hang on to these like now old world kind of authority figures, right? Where literally it's like, I'm also going to get in uniform, and it's going to be very, very like demarcated who does what. And these are the police force, and this is how we function, and you are this, you know. I thought that was a really interesting way to handle it. And also just the idea of like, well, I picked you up on the side of the road, though you didn't ask me to, and saved your life. So now here's my contract for you that you now must sign in blood.
Yeah. You know? It was an interesting dynamic. The one concern I had is, and I mean, I think maybe this is just inevitable, and I don't know how they escape it, is, you know, there is still familiarities because ultimately it's still another place that is a safe haven, but guess what? There's creepy stuff going on that they have made, how these people have been affected by what's going on and how they're now doing their own shady stuff. Obviously not to the extreme we've seen it. Like, you know, Dawn is harsh, but she's not the governor. She's not Gareth. But she is looking the other way at this creepy guard and whatnot. So that is the one thing that this episode made me a little worried about, was that idea that, you know, I don't know if they can escape repetition of that at a certain core place.
I think so too. I mean, I think with the governor, when we met him, by the time we met him, he was already so far gone that he was no longer in an internal struggle. Gareth, though, we saw like at a point in time where he maybe was trying to behave in a more sort of moral fashion. Dawn is interesting because she's crazy, you know, like she's really nuts, like, but she's trying, and you can tell that the circumstances are making her insane. Like these smacks to Beth and these like just beating on people. It's not rational behavior at all. She has rationalized it in her mind that the world is, we don't know what happened, but the world is so far out of control that the only way to survive is to control it with an absolute iron fist. But you also see, and maybe it's just the performance, she really doesn't want to do this. She's really not certain. She knows what she's doing. She's pretty sure it's all about to fall apart and that she's lying to herself. That's what I got from her performance.
Oh yeah, and I also think that was reflected in the dialogue, even in, I think Steve is his name, the doctor, the kindly doctor who then had his own stuff at the end.
Sure.
Kind of saying that she's in charge, sort of. Yeah, kind of. That it's not like, this absolute thing that
she's a prisoner here too.
Right. And then it was interesting, obviously this was the most Beth-centric episode ever, even more than the one with Daryl last season because it was just her.
Yeah.
And it's certainly a lot of fun seeing how these characters evolve. And so I thought it was a lot of fun in this episode to see the casualness with which she dealt with a lot of things happening. Like when she snuck into that office to steal that key and she finds that girl dead there and she just kind of deals with it. It's like, that's a distraction, or not a distraction. She's almost just like, oh, okay, that person's dead. And then, she's turning into a walker. I can use that. So that was actually very fun just to see, especially, because the last thing we saw Beth was her and Daryl.
Take the scout.
And I'm saying just like, as far as like her and Daryl teamed up. And so you're like, okay, she's been taking some pointers and... She's cooler with stuff.
Yeah, I think that it's just, and that's, swinging back to sort of the episode at large and the similarities with the other places that we've seen. I don't know who or what group of people would be able to function in a healthy manner in the world that they find themselves in. I really, if they stumble upon a group that does, they're going to have to justify it pretty heavily because everybody's going to be changed by this, right? Like you would have to be. And Beth has been certainly changed by it, in a big way. And she's just like, look, you're going to, try and keep me here. You're going to smack me in the face. You're going to let people get raped. Well, I'm probably going to stab you with a scalpel.
Yes.
I'll sing whilst I do so.
Right.
I have not less, because I think she is she's in that fight with herself where she's like, well, I still believe we can have nice things, but at the same time, I'm not going to let you just roll over me and steamroll me. I'm not going to let this guy rape me. I'm going to push him in front of this girl so she'll eat him.
Yeah. And then when she found out, that the kindly doctor was also someone who basically had her kill someone.
Yeah.
She was very much, it seemed at the end, was willing. She was going to probably kill him to escape, were it not for our little last minute swerve there with Carol being brought in.
I want to talk about that too, but I just want to say really quickly also, like, the whole idea of her looking the other way while these sexual abuses happen. I mean, look, that happens now, right now, in prisons, in the world, in institutions everywhere. So it's not like, to me, outside of the realm of possibility that in this situation that would also happen. It's just also really messed up.
Oh, yeah.
And really sad.
Yeah. And then it's just weird because we just came off of the backstory of Terminus, and which, again, way more egregious. Like, it was basically a group of killer rapists who had turned these people into what they were. But it is that thing that makes me hope that Walking Dead, we're in year 5 already, and this is why I hope that, maybe it's such a huge success, but I hope the show, they don't try to keep going for 10, 12 years.
Yeah.
Because, at a certain point, you're going to start telling the same story again.
Yeah, sure. You're going to run out of ground. I found this actually, I'll be honest, I like the storyline of the Hunters. I actually found this more believable because it wasn't as extreme as now we're just going to eat everyone.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I agree. It didn't go to that sort of huge jump. Yeah, we're just gonna lure people to kill them because we got betrayed.
Yeah.
And like I said, the visual was so different.
We're just gonna eat innocence.
Right. Now let's talk about the end and Carol being brought in because you were theorizing before we started filming about that.
I was theorizing. I like doing that. I was theorizing that what had happened was that Daryl and Carol followed the car, found their way there. As we know, Carol's not going to just rush in. She's going to sort of stake it out and see what's going on, as she did previously with Terminus. They probably ran into Beth's new friend, Noah, who had escaped, who Eric figured out is actually
the kid from Everybody Hates Chris. I was watching, I'm like, he was a kid actor on a kid show, and I couldn't place it, and then it hit
he's also starring in Dear White People right now. In any event, they find Noah. Noah sort of gives Carol the rundown of this is what's going on in there. They find you, and then they heal you, and then they trap you in there, Beth's in there, yada, yada, yada. And she's like, oh, really? Okay, well, I guess I'm injured then. And she did look a little injured, so I don't know how much of it was entirely faked or how much she was like, hit me, Daryl. Right. I don't think he really hit her. But I'm pretty sure that she got herself brought in there only in order to mess everybody up.
I think that's a very good theory, especially given what we've, where Carol's at as a character and story-wise. It'd be kind of weird to go from this amazing, kick-ass, basically rescued everybody to something just getting the drop on her.
Yeah.
So I think it is, I think you're probably right that it's something like that. The ruse and Daryl's out there to
I gotta say, I had the most concerns about this episode when it started because it felt to me like, oh dear, are we going down these random weird side stories? But I liked it. I've really enjoyed this season so far. Everything has its issues, as you brought up. Yeah. I didn't want her to sing. I was glad that she didn't. I don't mean that in a mean way. She has a beautiful voice, but it's just always a little weird.
If she was going to sing, it had to be full musical number with everyone joining in, the entire group there. Yeah.
And all the walkers say, hey. Exactly. I think that a lot of what she was confronting Beth with when she smacked her and she's like, you in this world are nothing, you're worthless except for this, as just kind of like a piece of meat for my guys to get off on so that they'll keep working. I thought was a really meta moment in a way, because I think that one of the questions the audience is that we love Beth, and then some people go, but how does she really fit in this world? She's just kind of like holding the baby or singing a lot of the time, right? And I think this was the writers answering that question. Like, there's more to Beth than you know. There's more to this character than meets the eye, and she is going to evolve as well. So I thought that really worked too.
Yeah, I agree. Ultimately, as a Beth episode, it worked. Like, I didn't feel like, oh, what, this is a waste of time. I think she proved that character could hold the center of the show.
I feel more invested in her.
There you go. Let us know what you thought. Were you happy with the Beth-centric episode? Do you think Carol, it's all a ruse to get Beth out of there? Let us know. Keep it here at IGN for plenty more on Walking Dead.